Welcome to Ben and Nate talk about questions we asked on the internet. That's what we're going to call this show for now. What do you think about that, Nate?
I like it. Ben and Nate's questions that we ask on the internet.
What we did was Nate asked a few questions, and we decided that we're going to look at those questions. You guys answered them. We're going to talk about those answers, give our own answers, and then see what comes of it.
Absolutely. And then going forward, we want to build off the audience. So we want you guys to submit questions. And at the end of this, we'll have our emails up so you guys can submit questions to us as well. Hey, everybody. My name is Nate Fay, and I'm from Connecticut, from Somers, Connecticut. I've been a practicing licensed massage therapist licensed since 2006. And I hold a dual role as a licensed massage therapist as well as an osteopathic manual therapist. And I've been a teacher, an international teacher for Eric Dalton's myoskeletal alignment technique for the past 3 years. How about you, Ben?
That's awesome. Hey, my name is Ben Stone, and I don't do anything fancy. I've been a massage therapist for about 20 years. And, really, I like to connect with other people who are passionate about body work. And Nate is one of those people. And I know you guys out there are some of those people. So I'm just looking forward to connecting with you guys and just seeing, where this show can take us.
So, and I just want to say too that the opinions expressed, particularly by me, are not of Freedom from Pain Institutes and are solely of Nate Fay's. But certainly if you like what you hear, which I know you're going to, you can look for a workshop at ericdalton.com.
Nice. And a little disclaimer about myself. I'm not affiliated with anything but myself. So anything I say is of my own stupidity. And I am not affiliated with any organization or any other person, or none of this has been written by any AI chatbots either. So let's talk about the question at hand. The first question that you asked, Nate, and I'm going to read through this and then we're going to talk about it a little bit. So the question states, education in the massage and manual therapy field can take us all on individual paths and specialties. I hear every day many of my Facebook friends talking about the difference they made in the treatment room, each with a different modality. The question this week is, do you believe it's your connection to your client or your modality that is truly making a difference? So tell me, Nate, can you give me a little bit of an idea of why you wanted to ask this question?
One of the things that I started thinking about over the past 5 years or so is, why do I make such a difference in my practice? And I practice a very specific style, if you will, of body work, primarily being myoskeletal alignment technique. As I'm sure that you have a strong educational influence on the style of body work that you practice. And I like to see a lot of my colleagues. I love seeing my colleagues' success stories on social media and how perhaps they've helped a client. That could be some of my chiropractic friends and how they've changed somebody's life. And other therapists that perhaps practice a modality, whether it's something along the lines of just general deep tissue work or what one might feel is or deem Swedish or relaxation massage. Maybe somebody incorporates exercise and movement modalities into the work or muscle testing, right? All to the same successes. And I wonder, if I would have the same success, number one, practicing and being trained in a different style, or if I would have just as much success being trained in the style I am. And then it becomes more about the initial bond that I make with my clients or my patients. The research to me, Ben, has been fascinating over the years, and something along the lines that if we simply listen to our clients and our clients feel like they trust you and they feel heard and listened to, that they start to feel better automatically under your care. So how much does that bond versus the technical application, what has a greater impact? And that's one of the main reasons that I wanted to ask that question and put it out there to our colleagues. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great question. I want to go in and talk about, we had a lot of people send in their answers. A lot of people have opinions,
Yeah,
and there's no right or wrong answer with this, right?
definitely
Everyone's
not.
going to take this differently. So I want to talk about, we had a chance to go through all the answers. I want to talk about what was maybe one or two of your favorite answers that we got to this question.
Yeah, we had over 60 responses to this particular question, which I thought was pretty cool. Little fire under everybody, right? To want to have a part of this. Interestingly enough, I almost going through the responses, I almost saw that it was sort of split down the middle of how people felt about that. But there was a couple responses that I liked in particular. Okay, so I'm just going to read one of these. So some people said both, right? And that wasn't exactly what I was thinking when I was asked the question. But like you said, I always say there's no wrong answers. But I like this one. I like the priority on connection that we make with our clients. So the priority is on connection that we make. Without that, it doesn't really matter what modality you use. Neither you, neither nor your client will experience the result that you're looking for. Our clients need to trust us and feel safe and know that their health and wellness is number one priority with us on the table. That was actually one of my favorite responses that I read. How about you?
Well, it's a good thing we didn't pick the same answer, because I came up with a different one, and this
Cool.
one is I'll just go ahead and read it. It says
Yeah.
modality is secondary to connection. Connection, in my opinion, is where trust begins. If your client doesn't trust you, no modality is going to help them. They tend to resist the therapy more and don't listen as well to recommendations. Connection helps your client to feel heard and understood instead of just like the next person on the schedule. With connections, your clients will share more info and will give you clues to the root of the issue. And then your modality comes into play when you get to that point. And that, I liked that answer. That was a pretty good answer.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
one of the things is we probably already have an answer in our heads before we even, based on our past experiences, we've already got a way to answer these, and everyone's got their own way to answer these. But I did like that answer.
Yeah, it's great. That's a great response. One of the things that I talk about quite a bit in my lectures in class, we ask the fundamental question: what is pain and why do people hurt? And we know that pain is multiple, has multiple factors. It's multidimensional with multiple experiences. And then we ask the question: how does body work help? And I always say the same thing, it's multifactorial. And people have multiple experiences with that as well. There's no two massage therapists that are built the same and come from the same sort of family tree of education and education style. And I think it branches out from there if we were to talk about physical therapists and chiropractors as well. And when a client chooses, their therapist, that's going to be their experience that they have, and it can make all the difference in the world, right? So how we start those sessions, right down to the phone call, to how getting somebody into our office, how we greet them, how we listen to them, and right there, if the bond's there, research says people are already feeling 60 to 80% better under your care before you even make your next step.
Yeah, that's a great point. And as I looked at this question, if I were going to answer it myself, um, I went and looked at, how do we define connection? What is connection? Because there's a lot of different levels of connection, right? We've got physical, we've got mental, emotional, we've got communication. So where do we define connection? Um, and if I had to, pick one part of connection, it's really hard to do, to just narrow it down to one thing. How do you connect with your client on just one of those things? One of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what would it be like to work with somebody and not have connection, to just use pure, I'm going to call it modality, just pure work, no connection, what would that look like?
Well, at the end of the day, it's interesting, right? In the way I practice, I always say that, we're a team. We have a team-oriented atmosphere. I have a couple clients that have been coming to see me for the length of my career and only know me as a therapist from 18 years ago, right? Getting on the table, getting draped, having a very, a 60-minute session with me. And I incorporate a lot of the, mat techniques and osteopathic techniques sort of more into a generalized deep tissue session. And it's very nonverbal the whole time, right? So I think the connection there is back to trust, right? Back to trust and back to we don't necessarily have to say anything, right? There's a lot of nonverbal cueing that happens in our session as well, right? That makes sense. Like when we're doing a technique, sometimes if it's just a hand placement where there's that sort of innate, maybe it's an emotional connection, or maybe it's that team, that nonverbal teamwork that's about to happen. Your client sort of starts to know what you're going to do next, right? And I think in a nutshell that it is very possible, and I've seen it be possible with just a small amount of my clients, right? But it's definitely possible. However, I found in my early days when I felt like I didn't really understand how to take a history and listen to somebody and things like that, then it felt very disjointed throughout the session. That makes sense.
What's the saying? The hardest part of communication is the assumption that it's taking place. So I know I've talked to you about the interactor versus the operator model. And I'm a big fan of the interactor model, because if you can't interact and communicate with the person on the table, how do you know what you're doing? And even if you're getting to the issue that they brought into you, right?
Right. We should define that really quickly for people that haven't heard that. So the way I usually lay that out is I just ask the question, do you work on somebody or do you work with somebody? So changing that one simple word, do you work on somebody or do you work with them? And that's the difference between those two models.
I like to think of it as a surgeon. A surgeon is going to operate on you, and you don't even have to be present. You're
Right.
out, right? They're operating on you, and it doesn't matter what happens. But just think it in what we do. We work with somebody. We're communicating. We're talking. We're verbal, nonverbal, all that stuff.
So, I think kind of backing up to what you were saying, my answer would be, right, sort of that trust, that bond, that connection, that if I was to put a ratio to that is, certainly more than half, maybe about 60 to 70% of a client getting better under my care. But there's an interesting trust too. There's a connection that clients develop with, maybe they've come to your office because they see that maybe you're doing something different versus some of the other therapists in your area. So maybe in their mind, that different thing that they haven't heard about is going to be the thing that helps them, right? And then obviously being skilled, understanding how to, communicate with somebody non-verbally through fundamentally is via touch. And that's a pretty powerful thing too, that clients pay us typically out of pocket and trust that we're going to help them in some way via touch. It's a powerful thing.
So we both agree.
Yeah.
Connection over modality, right?
Connection over
Doesn't mean
modality.
we're right. And we're kind of,
Nope.
the intent behind this show is to have some fun, right? And it doesn't mean that we know everything. And if you end up learning something from this show, that's on you. But hey, we might
Absolutely.
drop some knowledge, right?
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, yeah, it's like when I leave my classes, I want to give folks just a few things to think about. Because I know for me, when I started to hear this stuff 10 years ago, it was a scary place to be. I felt like my whole world was crumbling with what I thought I knew. So we hope to share that with you guys.
Yeah,
Thanks for
so
this.
let's do a little bit of review. What would you say you learned from going through these questions or these answers to this question that you asked?
I think one of the things that I learned was that, well, first of all, I think looking back, the majority felt that, connection over modality. Certainly that's what I learned. And I think that, I think in a positive way, and I still think this is a positive thing, that it'll be interesting to see how, when with some of the people that commented that thought it was more modality, how maybe they might start thinking differently down the road, if they do.
Yeah, and I learned that, or at least what I thought about, I have a lot more questions than answers after going through what everyone shared. But I would say, one of the things I thought about was everyone's going to define connection differently. And I'll bet some of those people who actually, thought that modality was more important, you know, they are probably using connection more than they realize. And so
So,
who knows? I'm not going to say they're right or wrong because who knows? Everyone goes about it differently, and their connection just may come through just more naturally, and they don't even think about it.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Our clients stick around for a reason, man. People vote with their feet. And if they don't come back, you know, there could be a lot of reasons why.
That's for sure. Well, hey, I want to thank everybody for listening and or watching, depending on how you're consuming this. If you have a question you think needs to be discussed, let us know because we want to ask it. We're going to ask it on the internet, and you guys are going to answer it. And then we'll talk about it. That's what this show is all about. We're just going to have some fun and see where this goes.
You're responsible for keeping the show going. Not you, Ben, but you, the audience. So definitely email us questions and we'll put up those socials at the end how you can contact us.
So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.